All right, welcome to the show, Garrett Gunderson.
What's up, Jason? How you doing, man?
I'm well. Good to have you here, dude.
Yeah,
great to see you.
Pretty cool seeing some of the stuff you're working on recently.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, likewise. Your comedy and bringing comedy and money, in particular, humor, which we'll talk about in this episode, is very helpful and useful.
Well, both of our white asses are doing spoken word now, which is not something I would have expected to say about myself 2 years ago.
Yeah, me neither. 4 years ago, I was like, what? And I saw a friend do it, and I was like, I want to try that. So, yeah, anyway, thank you for receiving mine, and fun to see yours, and I want more from you.
Yeah, man, I did. So I've written two main ones, one that I highly produced and shared with you, and then this other one that is in my play, and I did it for my son twice today, preparing for rehearsal, and I'm getting there, man. Like, it's, for whatever reason, there's like two lines that keep tripping me up, and I got through both of them today, so it felt good,
Nice.
A little bit of progress.
Yeah, so
cool. At a similar length to what you've done, my one of my play.
Oh, right on. Why? Maybe we can start here. Why spoken word? Why art? Why comedy? When you're kind of this traditional, at least historically, financial expert and guy, why that pivot or integration?
Finance requires courage, man, and a lot of people don't really want to deal with it. So I've always integrated some element of entertainment or some element of humor, get people to face a topic they normally would consider dry or drab or monotone or intimidating. And I got really clear, like, entertainment is the gateway to transformation. It's the language of the masses right now. Everyone wants to be entertained. Not very many people want to be educated. People want the results of education, but they don't want to go through the process of education. And so, rather than being like a surprise and delight person, like, oh, that guy was a financial guy, I was surprised he was so entertaining. Like, why don't I just lead with entertainment? And for me, comedy brings me back to my childhood and telling jokes for my family and them sitting around and laughing, and me remembering my uncles and my dad telling jokes. I want to remember those jokes and retell those jokes. And I love that kind of process of laughter. And I was like, where's the court jester in finance? I mean, the court jester back in the days told the truth, right? He's the only one that could speak the truth in front of the king and queen, and everybody stopped to listen. And right now, we need a lot of truth telling when it comes to finance, but in a way that people are engaged, not forced, in a way that people are flow, not intimidated, as I mentioned before. So that's coming from it. It's like, so I have so much passion towards it, so much excitement towards it. And at the same time, I've never scientifically studied this, but I've heard it. So I'll just repeat it as fact, like on the internet. People are supposedly remember 3 times more when they laugh than when they don't. So I like that. I like that thought. And then I once heard the speaker talk about Star Trek did more to help with racism than about any other thing, because people are watching a TV program about different races and cultures and watching conflict and collaboration and all this kind of stuff. And it brought a conversation in their head that wasn't a conversation they expected. It wasn't what they thought was going on, but it was going on. And I'm like, that's interesting, because if I could do that in a way that I love, which is comedy, with something I know, which is money, maybe we can make a much bigger difference than I've done to this point in my life. And I'll have a good time doing it. Yeah,
so cool. Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, dude, your books, I've read 2 of your books only. You've got, I think, 7. You've got a couple more coming soon. 2 of your books, Killing Sacred Cows and What Would the Rockefellers Do, were entertaining to me. And I had a good time. And I particularly liked you reading Killing Sacred Cows because you riffed a little bit in there, I noticed. And anyway, super helpful for me. Yeah, and again, you made it fun, because I've read a lot of financial books at this point, and yours definitely was by far the most fun for me.
Well, thanks, man. Here's what that book was really like reading it. So when I wrote that book, to say I wrote it is an exaggeration. I got this guy that was a client, his name's Stephen Palmer, to write it with me, which meant he did the typing, I did the talking. Uh-huh. And he reads he's read so many books and reads a lot of the classic books. So he spends a lot more time describing something than I would, and uses a lot more words to do it. So if you like, when you read What Would Rockefellers Do, it's much more simply written, because that's more like, I did have someone helped me with writing it, but then I rewrote everything that they helped me get on paper. So it's a lot in my verbiage. And so I asked Stephen what he thought of what would Rockefellers do. And he goes, well, it's pretty simple. And I was like, good. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
When I read Killing Sacred Cows, it was almost a decade after I wrote it for the audiobook. And I dropped the F word thousands of times over those 2 days because I would pause in the wrong part and I would fumble something because it's not how I would quite say it. And I remember booking the audiobook for What Would the Rockefellers Do at the same studio. And we booked a couple days and I was done in a day. And it was such a different experience.
Oh my God.
One of the comments on Audible was, does this dude not know how to read when they listen to Killing Sacred Cows? I was like, I actually didn't when I was going through it. So it was good to hear a compliment on your side because my end of it was like, damn, I put the editor through some work.
Nice. Well, anyway, the moments there was a couple moments that stood out to me, especially when you were riffing, because you're that way just in your comedy. And I get that when you're reading your own words or someone else's words, even it's a little more rote, it can be.
Yeah.
Cool. I want to get into our relationship with money. This is a relationship podcast. And a lot of couples fight over finances, of course, and they disagree and they have different values there and they don't know what the hell to do there. I want to start with what's your advice to couples around money?
Well, first off, I think the universe and the way attraction works is we usually don't marry someone with the same money personality as us. There's a level of interest and intrigue there that eventually when you get married can become a source of conflict. So let me break down the 4 money personalities.
Great.
So it's helpful to understand. So the first money person, and by the way, everybody has a winning money personality and a shadow money personality. The shadow personality comes out when we feel like we're in scarcity or we're trying to protect or we're trying to get somewhere, or we're trying to hold on to something. We're never at peace when we're in our shadow persona. So I'll start with the shadow persona so it's understand.
Right.
Miser plays a game called preservation. So misers are all about scrimping, saving, sacrificing, budgeting. They're doing all they can to control and protect whatever cash is on hand. So they'll coupon clip. They'll drive out of their way to save on things. They'll go for, long periods of time or never getting something that they want because they're too worried about, they're in scarcity around their money.
Okay.
The second money personality is a conservative, and it has nothing to do with the political persuasion. It's simply someone that's in the game called accumulation. They love the concept of retirement. Hey, we will defer and delay and invest our money. The miser's less likely to invest. They're more likely to hold on. Their inclination is coffee cans and put cash in there, hide it under the bed, leave it in a savings account or a CD, where you're going to have more of the diversified portfolio and an index fund and 30-year horizons with the conservatives. So they're not going to cut out every expense, but they're only going to pay cash if they can pay cash. And they're going to invest as much as they can for their future. So think of the Midwestern condescending, I know everything, Dave Ramsey's. That's the conservative,
Okay.
And then you've got the strivers. You and I have spent a lot of time with strivers because I'm more of a striver than anything when I'm in my shadow persona, which is playing a game called status. And so it's all about, how can I make more? How can I grow a bigger business? How can I do more things? That's kind of the striver's mentality. And so the number of employees or the size of their revenues.
The car they're driving.
Right, the car they're driving, the size of their home. You'll find that a lot with a striver. A lot of entrepreneurs are strivers.
Yeah.
Then you've got the high roller. Now, the high roller is all about the deal, and they're playing a game called opportunity. They're raising funds, and they're the life of the party a lot of times, but they also might lose everything because they take a lot of risk. Mm-hmm. And that high risk can lead to very short-lived riches. So understanding that the least number of people are probably high rollers. A lot of people are probably following the miser and conservative in the mass population. And then there's a decent percentage of strivers. So a lot of strivers are married to conservatives or misers. And so conflict, because the strivers, we can always make more money. And the conservative misers, we need to save more money. And here we go with that kind of frustration.
Completely.
Because, strivers you need to spend money to make money. And the conservatives you need to save money to have money in the future. So you can see that there's this conflict that happens. So my wife in her shadow persona is more of a conservative, and I'm more of a striver. So when we look at that, she's going to get more worried when I'm spending. Like, hey, do we set enough money aside? How much money do we have in cash right now? How are our investments doing? Those kind of things. And her looking at investment isn't like, how's your business doing, as much as like, how much is the result of that business that I could go get money and pay for something if there's no money around or to pay a bill. Okay.
Yeah.
So in understanding that, I developed a system just for my wife and I. This wasn't like a system that we put together for the world. It was just like, okay, let me get clear about what her values are and what has to be met for those values to feel stable and secure. And for me, and I think this applies to all personas, was if you can achieve economic independence, which is not an easy feat, but economic independence is to have enough cash flow that comes from assets that are either an entrepreneurial income that doesn't require your daily involvement, like when I still get royalties for killing sacred cows, that would be an example, or assets like a piece of real estate that's kicking off cash flow every month. Now you still have to be involved, but you don't have to be involved daily. And when that can cover your basic expenses, that's economic independence. What I find is all four personas change how they feel when there's economic independence. You know, like like my wife's like, oh, cool. So no matter what happens with this comedy special that you're doing and spending a lot of money on, our kids are going to be able to still have their, same schooling. We're still going to eat the same food. We're going to live in the same house, drive the same cars. Go for it. I want you to do it. Let's go all in. But when that's not there, the conservatives like, should we really be doing that? How long does it take to pay off?
Yeah, and then you start getting annoyed because you feel like she's crimping your style and keeping you from your dreams and all that, but you're not seeing that actually she just needs a few fundamental things in place so that you can go do that striving.
Right, so universally, all four personas, if they can agree to set aside 6 months of the expenses and savings, because high rollers are going to be volatile, up and down.
Yeah.
That creates some stability if you have a significant other. Like, okay, at least we have that. We've got some staying power. If there's a health issue, we've got some staying power. If there's any other things that might occur. So get that. Pay yourself first, which is very simple. But what I mean by pay yourself first is not fund a retirement plan. I mean, when there's a paycheck that comes in, take a percentage off the top and set it in a separate account. I call it a wealth capture account. Now that 10% is what they used to talk about in The Richest Man in Babylon. I recommend 15%, which might sound like a lot. But I'm here to tell you there's 4 places where people can find money to get this 15%. Number 1 is the IRS. A lot of people pay too much. If you get strategic about that, pay less there, legally and ethically, there's more for you.
Yep. Number
2 is interest. By restructuring your loans and getting better interest rates, renegotiating interest rates, or reallocating underperforming assets to pay higher interest rates, you can free up cash flow. The third one is investments. If you have investments that, once again, aren't outperforming your interest rates, pay off your loans and free up the cash flow. If you have non-performing fees or hidden commissions or volatility, you can smooth that out and keep more of your money. Or the fourth one is insurance. There's a lot of duplicate coverages or improper structures. So the first thing I want people to do is find places where they can keep more of what they make without cutting back. Set that money aside automatically, so it's in a wealth capture account to build 6 months of savings. And now that's going to create a level, kind of stable ground for all personas to be like, okay, like the high rollers be like, oh, I could take that money and invest it. You could, but is it always going to work out? This is money that's a peace of mind fund to create harmony within the family, to know that you've got some basics handled, and far too many people don't have that. Therefore, they're living on the edge. Yeah,
and they live in stress and anxiety, right, and fear, and then what maybe some people would call scarcity. So let me ask a question about scarcity for a minute. Because my experience is when I don't have that 6 month thing that you're talking about, that kind of stability, I go into a version of scarcity where it's like there's not enough, right? And so fear kicks in, and some spiritual people might judge me as neurotic. Oh, dude, you're not living in abundance, you're in scarcity. And I'm like, well, it feels real to me. And isn't there a reality to, now there's scarcity of like, I can't get food. That's different than I can't live my lifestyle, right? But still, it's you could call it scarcity, that I'm scared that my basic nut isn't covered every month and my family's not going to be okay in the lifestyle choices that we make. And so I get scared and I go into some fearful behavior, right? So can you talk a little bit about like, what does this scarcity thing really mean? And because it's not wrong or bad, right?
Well, first off, we have to recognize scarcity has a counterfeit called ignorance, or abundance has a counterfeit called ignorance, where like a spiritual person saying, oh, you're in scarcity, you get, just live abundantly. But if they're neglecting their finances and all of a sudden their family's in complete chaos and not protected, like that's ignorance, not abundance.
Okay.
That's neglect.
Key.
And so,
key distinction.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are in denial, and that denial, like my wife once paid for this program, very expensive program, and they overpromised on what they delivered. And I know the people in charge, so I just called them and I said, hey, look, you guys promised this, that, and the other. And then one of their comments was like, things tend to work out. We just kind of, and they just didn't handle things logistically and I was like, that's ignorance. That's not reality. Like it's a faux spirituality at that point.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And if we're going to live in the woods, like, like Ralph Waldo Emerson or something for a while, and we're going to live off the land, then I guess we can be abundant about not worried about money whatsoever. But if we're going to live in reality where we've got bills that are coming in and where we're paying for things for our family, and then we're like, it all will work out and I'm just going to be abundant about it, that is damaging, because now we're not dealing with not being a cause or an action in a result that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. We're just hoping like that's like people that watch The Secret. Like, I'm going to meditate money into my lap. Okay, well, intention's super helpful, but action combined with that intention is essential, right?
Yeah, completely. So, okay, I know you teach a lot about psychology of money and like our mindset. That's a big proponent of yours, of like, we got to have the right mindset and the attitude. If I'm in that place, because there's a lot of people with COVID and stuff, people lost their jobs and they're worried about their money and their, whatever, their accounts have been up and down. When we're in a fearful place and we don't have that 6 months built up, or we do and we lost it and now we're scared, what's the basic psychological move here? What's like the first step we need to do when we're scared that we don't have enough?
Okay, so there's a couple options that you have here based upon who you are. The first thing to look at is, do you have someone that you know and trust, that you look up to, that will actually ask you questions you don't know how to ask of yourself in those moments, and say, hey, I'm feeling scarcity because my accounts are down, I'm out of work, and I'm not sure what to do. Because when we're in a bad place psychologically and we're trying to solve from that scarcity. Exactly,
right.
It's not tricky. Helpful. But if we could talk to someone that's not like a parent that goes, it's not your fault, Jason, it's okay. It's all, you're like, that's great. But what you're looking for is someone that can ask you questions and help you design a way to move beyond that scarcity and into action. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people hide what's going on. They don't want people to see them in that vulnerability. They think that's weakness. They want to pretend like everything's okay. And that exacerbates the problem. But if you can actually be really open with someone you know and trust to get beyond that, that is absolutely the key.
Totally. Okay. So getting emotional, psychological, practical support from someone who can ask you difficult questions that you don't know how to ask.
Right. That's one way to do it. The other
and that could be a coach, mentor, someone like that. Financial person.
Coaches, mentors, like peers that you really know, love, and respect. But it's got to be someone that isn't going to just exacerbate a victim mindset or tell you, oh, it's so bad out there, everybody's in trouble right now. Like, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
Right? You want someone that's going to say, okay, well, what are your resources? What options do you have? What connections are you looking for? What are you doing about this on a daily basis? They're starting to help you develop something. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing to do. Another thing to help change the mindset. When people are in that situation, a lot of times they start to create that reality with their conversations.
Completely.
Right? So it's constant complaining. And this is, look, I'm sensitive to what I'm saying here, but I just want to be really clear about it. Here's the symptoms. Oh, the president. Did you hear about what happened in Indonesia today? Hey, it's the news, it's social media, and it's politics are the three main culprits where people don't deal in reality anymore because they don't want to deal with their their own reality. They escape to something else to basically change the conversation away from what's really happening with them and then put blame somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's easy to do. And other people will suck you into it if you get into uncomfortable conversations with someone they're not ready for. Like if I go deep with someone, they're not ready to go deep in that conversation, they're immediately like, sports, politics, social media, like what can we get to?
Change the channel.
Right, they change the channel. So we have to be mindful in our own life, like who are we spending time with during those moments, and are they helping or hurting us?
Mm-hmm.
So I have friends that when they go through divorce, like I'm happy to talk to them for a minute, but if they're going to continue to get toxic about the concept of marriage, I take a break.
Yeah,
like I'm not a counselor, and if all it's going to be is ultimate negativity. Now, like if they want me, like if they just want to process emotion, that's one thing. But there's other people that it's like all they want to talk about is that in a negative way. I don't want to let that into my conversation about how I view marriage. So when people are in difficult situations around money, they're looking for other people that they can all complain about their money situation and the economy and politics and choices outside of their control. They're going to continue to have that damaging structure in their life. So one of the ways to get out of that is simple concept of starting your day the right way. Like when I find that I'm out of flow or if I have scarcity or stress, then I start slipping with my time. Like I'm like, I just want to escape into a TV series or I just want to listen to sports talk radio. That's an indicator like, there's something going on. Either A, I've overpacked my schedule and I'm looking for a release because I'm out of flow, or B, I'm not facing some reality. I'm not processing some emotion. So what I do in those cases is actually carve out time in the morning. And I might play a little guitar, write in my 5-minute journal, do a little workout, do some stretching. Like I actually do the opposite of what most people feel like doing because they're going to expand all this drama in their life and therefore feel like they have no time. I'm actually going to spend more time on my own to get in a good place before I show up. And if I really want to take that to the next level, I'm going to call people that I know I'm always valuable for. And I'm going to add value to their life so I can get out of my terrible mindset for a minute.
Victim spot.
Make it just about that. But like, because if I do something good for someone, they appreciate me. They acknowledge it. That feels really good. And it helps me rise above those negative thought processes. Then I can also talk to someone and say, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm struggling. And then get some good advice. And then take that time to start my day by putting myself in the best energetic situation and having what I call my morning tuning to tune in to the best of what I can do and the best of who I am. So this morning, I skipped my workout, which I don't do that often because I'm like, I need to write my 5-minute journal. I just need to get some things organized so I don't feel clutter. So I could take back control of my time that started to feel like it was slipping because I've been on the road for a little while. Right. So you can kind of change your environment a little bit, change some of your conversations and who you talk to. So I had a conversation this morning with someone who always uplifts me, and I left that meeting inspired. Like I left doing, so these are the things we do and I got to tell you, during these times, you got to look at your calendar and go, what am I wasting my time on? And I should eliminate. And what should I do more of? Because it's bringing me closer to what I want to do. And I get it when someone's loses their job and they're in a financial struggle, we can get in a real negative self-talk about not being valuable, not being worthy, not being, and that's going to rub off on everybody that we encounter because now we're energetically showing up that way versus like during my most difficult time, like I'm overextended in real estate. I'm launching a book. Like I'm getting tested on every level. I just had to get up extra early because I was getting up early anyway, stressed. So I'm like, all right, at 3:30, I'm going to start writing just basic ideas and outlines. And I just doubled down with the time that I'd normally be sitting around not sleeping with creating and starting to build out my plan. And instead of like everybody else going bankrupt in 2008 that was overextended in real estate, I made it through. I made it through because I was willing to talk to those relationships like Rich Christensen, the guy I just was hanging out with, that we developed a plan that helped me get through. I dealt with, the real estate stuff that wasn't working out. And then I carved out extra time for philosophy and writing, which ended up leading to the transformation that got to the other side when everybody else was just not sleeping, stressed out, keeping it to themselves, feeling like a failure. Like I had conversations with my wife during that time and I was like, I can't believe I let the family down. And because when I'd say that, she's like, you need to forgive yourself. I've already forgiven you. I know we're not on the other side of this, but I'm here for you. But like when I didn't talk to her at first, when it was happening, She's like, I feel disconnected. What the hell's wrong with you? What's going on? Like,
Nice.
Because I'm like, I'm just sitting here in my cocoon, going to handle this all by myself. And I'm going to pretend like everything's good. We're human. Things aren't always good. And they're never always going to be all good. And part of it is just going through that with companionship and the best people that actually want to support you to the other side of it. And that actually makes you feel more connected to them, in my estimation.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. There were some good things for the listener there to rewind and make sure you're listening to that one on one speed. Hey, quick interruption here. If you're in pain relationally and you need immediate support, our coaches can help you. I've trained almost 100 coaches at this point, relationship coaches that are amazing humans, and they have the chops to help you get through this hard time, this hard moment you're going through. Or if you want to actually hire a coach and have someone in your corner to continue to up-level your communication skills, your listening skills, your conflict skills, these folks are incredible. Okay. So all you need to do is go to relationshipschool.com/MRC. That stands for My Relationship Coach. So relationshipschool.com/MRC. All right. If you want immediate, direct, effective help, check them out. I got a few things. First of all, just that it was really cool to hear you talk about you and your wife there. 19 years. Is that right? Married?
19 years. Yeah.
Congratulations. Hell yeah to that. And so we might get into that here in a little bit. But I just love how you talked about that, because I tend to, when I get stressed, I tend to isolate. And the habit is, the old tape is like, I got to do this by myself, right? And so the reminder that, of course, we can lean on our spouse, our partner, good friends, people that are actually going to lift us up, not bring us down with more negativity. So that's a really good reminder. And then I wanted to get your take on my version of what you were just talking about. So when I get stressed, I don't distract usually, or maybe I do. My distraction is more work, because I get in my head, and I think by sort of working harder, I'm going to somehow solve the problem, but I'm coming from the anxiety and fear place. So what would your advice be for someone like me that when we're actually not distracting, we're making it look like we're trying to solve the problem by trying harder, and it's backwards. It doesn't, like, I'm out of my heart. I lost my creativity. It's gone.
It's different work. So if you're in those situations, it's doing different work. And this is what I mean by different work. Ask the question, what led to this situation? And what lessons could I learn from this situation? If I had to do it all over again, didn't have to go through this situation, what would I have done differently? And what would have allowed me to do it differently had I known that at that time? I created some of my most powerful financial models with that framework. So when I was like, I'm getting up at 3:30, I had this real estate deal that was going terrible in Franklin, Tennessee. And my partner declared bankruptcy. Now I have the properties. It's a personal guarantee. I'm launching a financial book at the time. This is testing everything. I'm like, oh my God, how could I be putting out a financial book and going through this? And it was like, let's test you on what you really believe. And I went and I said, okay, I had a red-eye flight to go work on this deal and meet with the bankers. And I was like, what would I do differently? What would have helped me? And I wrote these 10 questions. It's an investment scorecard that's an instrumental tool within our organization, because most people don't learn the lesson. Most people, they do everything they can to block it so that they don't have to think about it again, or so they don't have to experience the emotion. And I had to go through and say, okay, what could I learn from this, and what tool? And I created my most powerful tools. So a lot of people just keep making the same mistakes because they don't deal with it.
So
yeah. And so that's what I mean by different work. And that different work is, what lack of vision led to this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And what would this vision be if I wasn't under this pressure and stress right now? What would I be doing on a daily basis? What would I do differently? What's compelling to me? I was sitting there with over 100 real estate properties going, why did I buy real estate? I don't like real estate, but I read books that says, oh, well, if you're wealthy, people store their money in real estate. Do they? They also store it in a bunch of other places, but real estate people will tell you to store it in real estate. And real estate people, that's great. But I'm like, I don't like being a landlord. I don't like managing property managers. I don't like dealing with bank loans. I don't like to deal with deferred maintenance. Like, I just went through the list. I'm like, there's nothing on here other than there's a tax advantage and potential cash flow. So once I analyzed that, I was like, oh, that's why I developed this concept called Investor DNA. Because Investor DNA was the lesson that was gifted to me. And the other lesson that was gifted to me was learning how to creatively sell property. So when my clients got in that situation, I had 10 strategies. And when my clients were like, I'm struggling, I'm sad, I actually knew what that was like. Because this happened when I was 7 years into my marriage. And for 2 years, I didn't communicate very well with my wife on this. And when I came home, I'm like, I'm exhausted. I don't have any other energy. So she's alone with our 2 young kids who are under 4 years old, which I think is the romance and sleep terrorist ages. And I'm emotionally unavailable, telling her I have too much pressure, too much stress. I got most of my gray hair during that time. She finally snapped me out of it, saying like, what are we doing here? Like, she's like, you take care of everyone but me. You put everyone else first. And this isn't what I signed up for. I thought we were going to have a family. She's like, I'm tired of going to things all by myself. Again, I'm tired of raising these kids while you're checked out and exhausted, but taking good care of your clients and extended in all this real estate that I never signed off on. But she wasn't even blaming me for the real estate. She was like, and I was like, oh, I had a story, dude. And this is how real the story was. In my head, I was like, I don't have any extra energy. So when she'd bring up things, I would literally fall asleep because I was telling myself I can't handle anything else. And it had a physiological response until I realized sleep was my escape mechanism to not have to deal with stuff.
Totally.
Would I ever fall asleep talking to a client? No, but talking to my wife. And so we had to crawl out of that 2-year slump by me not just temporarily being different, but learning how to say no to things that lure disguised distractions that look like opportunities, and my family, creating my own rules for how our life was going to be. I didn't have rules before. Someone calls, I answer. Someone emails, I respond. I was like, okay, I'm just going to get rid of email. All right, I'll text with people, but I'm going to put my phone down. My computer only stays in this room. It never goes in the bedroom. I don't work past 6 o'clock. If I do work past 6 o'clock, it's because I'm speaking at an event. We've already agreed how many events I'm going to speak at in a predetermined way. If we do more than that, I take off time during, I just started creating rules. Like when we play there's rules. When we play life, we don't establish rules. Society establishes those rules for us.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm establishing my rules in life, in finance, in my marriage. And you know what's crazy is I didn't even have a vision for my marriage. Had one for my business. Didn't have one for my marriage. Had regular meetings in my business. Didn't have any regular meetings in my marriage. I treated my clients differently than I treated my wife, although I was supposedly doing this for my family, which was a great lie. That's just what we always say when we're so I just had to examine like what was working, what wasn't working. So what your question was is it's different work. Hard work is double down on what we're already doing. I'll take on more clients. I'll meet with more people. I'll get better at sales. Like all that kind of stuff just continues to create similar problems long term because you're still running the wrong race. Different work is examining when you're in those situations and say, what would I do differently? And what do I want to do differently? And what are my acceptables and non-acceptables? And what are my rules? Because people live by the rules you set forth for them. That's the bottom line.
Totally.
But I never set forth any rules for my business. Now I have those rules. And if people want to violate them, it's like, cool. You're not my client. Fine. Work with someone else.
One of the things I love about you, Garrett, is you're very inspiring when it comes to taking personal responsibility for your life, and your capacity to, I think when we fall into that victim place, woe is me and working harder, whatever the strategy is, distraction, of really digging deep and asking the questions, how can I take responsibility to get myself out of this? What questions can I ask differently? So anyway, that's huge. And I'm just loving that. Very inspiring. Was that just that quality of yours? Is that natural, innate in you? Because it sounds like it's I don't know, the way you were telling the story, it almost sounds like you had these kind of wake up moments. Or have you always been a person when you fall down, you sort of get to that place eventually?
I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of, development of and creating awareness that I didn't have. I think that I married really well that way because my wife's like a mirror and she's like, is this what you want? Do you like what you see? Is this what she's always asked those questions that, I was more stubborn early on and didn't learn as quickly because what did she know? I'm smart with business. But the more she was just soft about it, but persistent, I'd be like, that's a good point, right? Like I just started to see it. So I do have this good partner that kind of helps with that. And I have a desire deep down to do the right things, to do good things, to be a man of value, to be a man with values. And so I just learned that intellectual honesty creates less sorrow and less pain.
Yeah.
And when I was wanting it to be my way without looking at principles or knowing the values and thinking working harder was going to solve everything, it never really did. All it did was create a lot more stress and strife. Mm-hmm. And it's confusing because society makes you believe the only way to be successful is to sacrifice. And I don't believe that's true. I believe that sacrifice is the thing that's most detrimental to success. And we believe that the temporary things that we say we're going to sacrifice for are temporary, but it actually is habitual. And the more we allow sacrifice to creep in and think it's going to be a temporary phase of working hard, we become our habits. Mm-hmm. And those habits eat those intentions of down the road will be different. For lunch, it's gone. And so I just had to redefine how I operated, and people will work with you when you have those clear definitions. As a matter of fact, it's like relationships. It's just more attractive.
Yeah, you know? Totally. Yeah, completely. I mean, yeah, everything you're saying there, and you write about this in Killing Sacred Cows, this sort of delayed, I'm going to sacrifice enjoyment now, and so that when I'm 70 or when I'm retired, I get to enjoy my life, right? And you're like, what the fuck kind of model is that? That was actually a good wake-up call for me, because I'm more of the conservative archetype that sometimes is striving. I'm a little bit of both, I would say.
Yeah, but you'll have your primary and your secondary, so depending on the situation you're facing. You try to drive your way out of problems, but you try to conserve your way through life.
Totally. So I have that tendency, especially when I'm scared, of saying like we can't afford it, or the lifestyle choice is like, nope, got to wait until X day down the road, right? And I'm just hearing the reminder to not do that, or the cost of that, right? To be aware of the cost of that.
So I grew up, when I first was married, I was a miser. That was my first. We lived in an apartment. I was making 6 figures, but we lived in an apartment. I gave my wife this ridiculously low budget of what we could pay for an apartment, because at first I said, let's just, your dad said we could live in the basement rent free. And she goes, yeah, sex free too, if that's what you really want. Touche. So I gave her some ridiculously low budget. She finds one of the worst places in Utah that you could possibly live because the budget was so bad. And I inched my way up into a crappy apartment where I was constantly arguing. Like, our first year of marriage was a surprise for her, because when we dated, I didn't operate like a miser. But now it's like, oh, now we have a family. Now so it was like, why is the electric bill so high? We need to turn this down. We need to not use the air conditioner. We need, like I'm sitting there in a miserly way. And I was constantly pinching pennies and budgeting and constraining. Like, she was a teacher trying to buy new clothes because she's a teacher. I'm like, you don't need new clothes. And she's like, college girls and teachers don't usually wear the same things. And her mom's buying her clothes while we're married because I won't let her spend any money. And so you think of like, was I just trying to be an asshole? Was I just an asshole? Well, I was an asshole, but not because I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. It's because I was a miser. Totally. And what was so crazy is, so she tells stories of me being a miser. It's like her favorite pastime now. And so, because I'm so far from a miser now, but we're talking to the kids about it, and my kids can't even fathom me being a miser, right? Like, it just is beyond them, because it's not who I am at all anymore. And my youngest is like, Roman, you know him, he goes, Mom, like, why was Dad a miser? And Carrie goes, because he thought it was the best way to provide for this family.
Right. That was the paradigm you were in.
I was like, God, but her perspective was so healing for me.
Uh-huh. She didn't shame you or exactly.
No, and I was like,
under the bus.
I mean, the way I went about it was not right, but I thought I was doing the right things, like, because I wanted to protect. But, my real belief is the only thing we need to protect people is love, but we get caught up in scarcity because we've got stories handed down from the Depression, and we've got situations like when I was over leveraging in real estate that can burn you or make you feel burned. And so a lot of times we learn the wrong lessons. And then we move into our shadow persona to protect ourselves from those circumstances where we were in something we didn't quite understand. So it's a fascinating situation.
Totally, man. Yeah. When people are, because I think probably everybody listening, if I said, would you like to have more money? I'm guessing 95% of them would say yes, right? Maybe 100%.
I'll take more.
Yeah, why not, right? And is there what's the simplest way to the psychological mindset? If you really believe that you want more money, there's all kinds of schools of thought here. Well, you need to have a vision. You need to have a plan. You need to have all these diversification of your portfolio. You need to believe in yourself. You need to whatever. Is there a way that you can boil it down to like as something as simple as, well, you need to actually value yourself and then offer a service to the world that's valuable? Is it that simple, or is there, what would you say
it's that
if someone wants to make more money?
And that hard at the same time, right? I mean, I have a thing I uncovered called the value equation, because I think what you said is so accurate. But the question comes down to, okay, you value yourself and you want to be of value, but how do you become valuable to others? It's pretty easy with your family. A little harder with people you don't know, because someone's like, well, I don't know the internet. Or I don't know how to do, like there's just, for some people, it just comes easier than others. And other people have a little luck involved in it. But the value equation says it's our mental capital, which is our ideas, knowledge, wisdom, insights, strategies, and tools, multiplied by our relationship capital, people, networks, organizations, mentors, friends, and family. And there's a bridge between those two things that I call business. And business is this bridge where we link what we know to serve others, solve problems, and deliver that value. And a byproduct of that becomes money. Money is a byproduct of value creation.
Totally.
Now, we can either deeply, like I just had a lunch today with someone that they're talking about having me speak to this group of 20 people that were at least $500 million or more to be in the room. I was like, interesting. That's not a lot of people, but that's a lot of influence over people for people that are doing that much, because they've obviously delivered a massive amount of value. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're at that level, you probably delivered it to a lot of people. Yeah. Like you can become fairly wealthy just being highly impactful to few people, if it's impactful enough. Mm-hmm. It makes me think of like Tony Robbins charging $1 million for a private client, right? That's like, he must be doing a lot for his private client to get $1 million, but it's still not going to get you extraordinarily wealthy, having a few clients at $1 million. But if all of a sudden you created dollars worth of value for 1 billion people and they actually receive that value, that's substantial. So there's the depth of impact and there's the reach. So I just call that the impact equation. How deeply you're impacting people or how many people you're reaching. And so those might require skills that are beyond one individual. It might be that the way to unlock our wealth is collaboration. But so many people are afraid to collaborate because they have the notion if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. Or they think it's all about reducing expense instead of expanding value. And so a lot of our mindset, if we're a conservative or a miser, is in reductionist thinking. And even the striver doesn't always play well with others. It's like, I'll just work harder and do more than anyone else so I can live like no one else sometime in the future. But the reality is collaboration is the only game to get the massive value creation. And we didn't learn as adults how to collaborate well. It's not what we do in school. You don't collaborate, you hide your answers.
Completely.
Right?
Completely. It's on your own. Yeah.
It's your grades. It's paving your path. But the reality is it's a world that if we combine talent, we get something that doesn't exist individually. And that's the game of collaboration that we have to absolutely embrace to become wealthy.
Yeah, beautiful. Taking that all in. Amazing. My wife and I think collaborating too in a marriage can be very difficult. For example, when I teach relationship stuff on my own, I kind of got my spiel, my shtick, and I just kind of do my thing, right? When her and I collaborate, I now have to slow down. We have to have many, many conversations. And yet it's ultimately a better end result because we're collaborating and there's this rich terrain that we get to navigate and go through and learn about each other along the way. Like to me, it's a much better path. Even though like the habit default is still like, I'll just do it by myself.
Yeah. I think that this is a quote, like a proverb or something. The one that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, it's
go together.
Collaboration. Yeah. So I think that we are impatient as human beings and try to get to the dollar fast. And a lot of times that means we went on our own and it's about the work that we can do. And this is why different work is so important, is because we're going to hit ceilings where there's only so much to give. And then we eventually hit diminishing returns because we're at a level of exhaustion, or it creates family strife. And now we're dealing with that. And now we're neglecting this. And then we're in constant reaction and chaos. So it is a lot of work to create vision. That's a real vision. It's real work to examine your mistakes and learn from those mistakes. It's real work to get clear about who you are and what you want and what really speaks to you, because intuition is a lot of times inconvenient. Like when I listen to my intuition, I'm like, oh, we're going to do comedy? Okay. Really? Okay. We need another 40-year-old white man doing comedy. Okay. But it's like, yeah, money. Then I'm like, oh, I'm going to write a one-man show. I mean, it's inconvenient, but it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't listen to intuition because it's inconvenient, and because we don't listen to intuition, we don't collaborate because we're staying busy doing what we've always done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dude, so helpful. It's just like I'm getting a coaching session here. So as we wind down, Garrett, I wanted to just underscore one thing you said, just backtracking a couple steps, was the business was the bridge between what were the two things? Valuing one
capital and relationship capital. Business is the bridge.
Okay.
And value creation is the thing that creates that we take our mental capital to create value for people, and then the byproduct is money.
It seems like a lot of artists and creatives struggle with that business bridge.
Well, yeah. And because again, they don't know how to collaborate.
Uh-huh. Do you think that's what it comes down to, is the artist? Because my story is that the artist has aversion to selling and marketing.
Well, it depends on whether we're doing art for ourselves or if we're doing it to make money. And sometimes the art we do for ourselves is the most brilliant art the world's ever seen and eventually makes money. But if we're going to skip doing art for ourselves to make money with it, we destroy the art.
Uh-huh.
And the aversion is because we lose sight. Like if someone hires me to do something like the one-man show, I created the art first. They like it or they don't like it. I didn't do it for their organization.
Right.
And it was, I created a game worth winning because I was rehearsing it with my son, because I was writing it and I was learning from it in the middle of COVID when everybody else is complaining. I'm creating, right? And so like there was so much value to it. And then today when the person's talking to me about, hey, do you want to do this? I was like, well, yeah, I want you to come see one of my rehearsals so you can see if it's worth paying the price that I want for it. But if you don't, it's fine. And see, I've just chosen, if someone doesn't pay the money for the one-man show, they don't get it for their organization.
Yeah. Nice.
Because it's
back to rules. Like you just created the rules, right?
I just created the rules. And I think because people a lot of times love their art, they give it away, or they're saying, oh, I'm not good at that. Well, guess what? Even if you're not good at that, there are people that are good at it. And you either hire and learn from them, or you partner with someone. Mm-hmm. And you got to get clear. What's that aversion? Is that what is the aversion that you're going to not be an artist anymore because like you're now making music for someone else that you don't love versus the music that you love?
Right.
And I think that, and it's again, what's your objective? Is it to get wildly rich? Well, go be a pop star. But if it's like, I want to make music that I feel makes a movement or makes a difference and it attracts the right people at the right frequency, maybe you don't make as much money, but you feel more fulfilled.
Totally.
And that's the confusing thing. More money doesn't always equal more fulfillment.
Yep.
And if we have to sacrifice or sell out who we are to get it, then is it worth it?
Yeah. Very important ponderings and questions. Thank you. Garrett, a couple more questions. one of our missions here at the Relationship School is to reach a lot of young people, kids Breck's age to your son's age to, in particular, high school students, because high school kids don't know how to collaborate very well, and they don't know how to work their shit out, especially when things get stressful and hard. So if I were to have a room full of 1,000 kids, high school students, and I could only teach them one thing about relationships or love, what would you want me to tell them?
How to say it, and you put it in your words, I'll say it how I would say it to you. When people get in relationships, somehow they feel this duty or responsibility to make the other person happy. When the other person's not happy, they took personal offense to it and they want to change their state of being or that emotion. For me, allow that person to feel that emotion. Allow them to go all the way through it and to process it and not be so narcissistic to think that you control that emotion for them. Mm-hmm. And I used to be like, hey, babe, you okay? Oh, you're not okay? What did I do? What else could I do? How I'm doing everything I can. How could you not be happy? How narcissistic is that? And so when I started being like, oh, you're not? Well, want to talk? Let me hold you. Okay. And I just listen. It's different than in the past where I'm like, let me fix this shit so I get back to my life.
Right.
And somehow we decided emotions are bad and that we can't handle pain and that we need to suppress it, push it away, or not share it because it makes us seem weak or broken. But what I think more than anything, and this is what I could say in my words, is the quirks with another person is what makes the magic in the relationship.
Yeah.
The things that only I know about my wife and only she knows about me, that we would call imperfections in any other way, shape, or form, but becomes the memories, that becomes the things that are most fun and laughable and cute and embrace the quirks. Yeah. That's the cool thing. Not someone wanting to change you, but someone finding the things that other people would think is dorky as adorable, or, where you could just be that person that you are. So I'd say embrace the quirks.
Awesome. I love it. Cool. And Garrett, where can folks find your comedy, your books, and more about you, how to work with your team, etc.?
Let me make sure I get this right because I knew we were doing this. So I was like, what is it that I'm putting here? Garrett Gunderson, Garrett, Gunderson, GUNDERSON.GG. So we're going to have my comedy tour dates up there. We're going to have clips of the comedy. We're in the middle of doing that. I know that this is recorded, so hopefully it's all done before the time we release this. But, didn't say a lot of funny things today, but that's okay. It wasn't a comedy show. It was, yeah.
No, but it's deep and it's really important what you're doing and your message. I'm personally really impacted by everything you shared today. So thank you.
Thanks, man. Really good chatting with you.
Yeah, good to chat with you. Best to your family and your kids, your two boys. Okay. Wow. A lot of nuggets in this episode, I'd have to say. I'll be listening to this one at least once, maybe twice more, and taking notes. I wanted to take notes during, and I was like, some of you have commented you can hear my typing in the background, so I don't want to do that anymore. For some reason, I thought you couldn't hear that. Anyway, go check Garrett out. So he's at wealthfactory.com. And his link, hopefully when this episode airs, is Garrett Gunderson. I think he said GG. So Luis, double check me on that to make sure that's the correct link and it's live when this gets posted. All right. He's got a lot of cool stuff he's up to. And just a really big privilege to spend time in the wilderness with him and his two boys. Okay. Action step for you is definitely listen to this with your partner if you have one, and with a friend if you don't have a partner, but you are interested in the money conversation and you're like, whoa, listen to this with someone and then debrief it. Okay, I'll be sharing this with my wife and we're going to have a conversation about it because there were just so many cool things here for us as a couple to keep learning from. Yeah, wow. Another action step is what can you I loved his questions there. He asked a couple good ones, which is one of them, if you're stuck and you're in a difficult experience right now around money, ask questions like, where is my vision not clear enough? What can I take responsibility for? in what I've done, what I've created, what lessons am I learning right now, or might I be learning right now through this experience? He had a really cool way. I would actually rewind to his exact questions so that you can get that part of the episode. And I'm going to be, when I re-listen to this, I'm going to be writing those down. Okay, awesome. And then another action step, as always, is to hang out with us in our Facebook group, relationshipschool.com/community. That will take you to our Facebook group. Thousands of people in there working through their relationship challenges and celebrating victories. Yeah. And, can you be one of those people out there in the world who's turning toward money and having a better, brighter relationship with money and sharing your wisdom? And if you're an artist, another subtle action step here, go back and listen to that part on artists. I thought that was super, super valuable for you, artists, creative types. Okay, everyone, thanks again, and all the best to you today. We'll talk soon. Hey, folks, good news. My new book, Getting to Zero, How to Work Through Conflict in Your High-Stakes Relationship, is available for pre-order. And here's what's cool. If y'all support me and you pre-order it, you get some cool stuff. Like I just recorded a 4-part mini video series on how to work through conflict, highlighting some of the chapters in the book. You can also get chapter 1 for free if you want to start digging in before the book comes out October 5th. So go to gettingtozerobook.com, gettingtozerobook.com. And thanks for being a listener and soon to be a reader of my new book. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Share one of these videos with a friend. We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships. And you are one of them, so thank you.